The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Book Club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood and I am really excited about today's show. And I think partly actually the reason for that is we have some glorious weather at the moment. The sun is out and which is always very good news. And I think it's here to stay for at least the next few days, so also do make the most of it. However, if, like me, you might be suffering from hay fever, I know there's a bit of a downside to the summer. I developed hay fever in my 30s. I'm still getting used to it. So, yeah, if you have any sort of, natural remedies or any advice, that would be fantastic. Please just send your messages into the studio. I would love to hear from you. But yes, so getting back to the book club show. So today I have a very, very special guest to talk about an excellent book, which I had the pleasure of reading just recently. So the book is called The True Story of Jihad in Islamic History. So this is part one, which is the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is written by the wonderful Yasmine Watson. And I'm going to do a very quick introduction to share some of Yasmine's experience, etc. And then I'm really, really pleased to have Yasmine joining us to talk about the book in our virtual studio, because obviously we're still not in the actual studio, but I'm looking forward to getting back there as well. So Yasmine is half English and half American, but has spent most of her life in the UK. She has a BA in Religious Studies from King's College London, where she decided that Islam has the best answers to life's most important questions. 22 years ago, she took her Shahada after meeting various Muslims and then met Sheikh Nazim al-Haqqani, who took Bay'ah with him. She has continually studied under her Sheikh, and in particular Sheikh Hisham Kabani, whose book Fatwa on Jihad was the inspiration for this book just published. Yasmine is also a child counsellor and passionate about mental health and well-being of women and children, and has been organising well-being retreats for the last 7 years, and recently formed a CIC called Halima Muslima for this purpose. She has 4 children, is a single mum, and lives near Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire. So I'm really, really pleased to welcome Yasmine. Assalamu alaikum, Yasmine.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, I was about to thank you first for taking out the time to join us this morning. And I guess we can really kick off in terms of, I know it's kind of your little bio there kind of touched upon it, but what was the inspiration behind the book and then wanting to write it and share it with everybody?
Well, it was inspired by Sheikh Hisham Kabani's fatwa, which he wrote in his book entitled Jihad, which is here. It's called Jihad, Principles of Leadership in War and Peace. And I would definitely recommend reading this book as well, because it goes into a very good explanation and it's essential fatwa. And this was written around a lot of the time. Other people of that time, other scholars, wrote about, because everyone was so dismayed of the negative portrayal of Islam, and this is all around the time of ISIS, which was just so terrible. And, and also, in the background as well, there was this general idea, which is propagated by the Orientalists about Islam, that Islam being spread by the sword, and which is, again, completely inaccurate. So I wanted to answer all these misrepresentations and write something that the young generation of Muslims can be inspired by.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I mean, it's a wonderful, I guess, intention to have, and really, really important, because, what you just touched upon, the way Islam has been portrayed, I guess, like what by wider society has really impacted how it's perceived, but also us as Muslims as well, how we're our own relationship, I guess, with the deen. All these things, I guess, have an influence on it. Now, obviously, you mentioned, obviously, you came to Islam, 22 years ago, so obviously as an adult. So obviously, I guess your experience would be a little different to maybe Muslims who've been born into, Muslim families, for example. I'd just be really interested to understand how you would have navigated that, really, because I was trying to calculate it. I was thinking that would have been maybe around the time of 9/11, and there must have been quite a few things going on, and how you maybe navigate that transition, what that experience was like.
Yes, well, back at university, like I studied older world religions, and I really thought, wow, Islam is the best, and it has the truth, subhanallah, and so once you become a Muslim, you have in many ways departed from mainstream society. So it doesn't particularly affect your faith when you hear negative things or things like 9/11 happen. But of course, it's that sort of general society around you. So I don't know if you've had that when like non-Muslims might come up to you and say, oh, have you read the news today? You're like, oh, here we go. And, you feel like you have to go on a whole explanation of why Islam actually isn't violent. And in a way, I'm not that good at that. I just thought, what, I want to put this into a book, nice and clear, so people can really understand that Islam is so peaceful at its heart. And and so it doesn't bother me so much about what society think, because when you found something that's true, you just know it's true. And alhamdulillah, subhanallah, Allah's given me that sense of certainty about it. So I just think, oh, it's aggravating, so I want to try and do something about it. I want to use my education to try and do something about like misunderstandings, which I just don't. I'm sure you don't like either. No one likes.
No, I know. It's right. No. I mean, it's really, really beautiful, because I think you're right that there is that sense of being comfortable in your own self, firstly, and if you're able to conquer that and really, it's that kind of self-acceptance in a way, and you're right. You can kind of maybe battle off any kind of maybe negativity, which is, definitely, which is really, really important. So I was also thinking then, obviously, so the title of the book is The True Story of Islamic, I've forgotten the name of the title, I'm sorry, it's got the True Story of Jihad in Islamic History, sorry, that's what it was. So now, obviously, like you said, there's been a lot of misrepresentation or misunderstanding around Islam, but then obviously definitely particularly in terms of the word jihad, hence making this book really, really important. And obviously, maybe I didn't mention, obviously it's aimed, of course it's for all readers, but I think it's particularly aimed at an age group, so looking at teenagers. Is that right? So why do you think maybe that particular age group was important for you to kind of in terms of education and I guess empowering them with this knowledge?
Yeah, well, I think particularly that age group has grown up with a lot of negative media around them, and a lot of negative portrayal of Islam. And this is exactly the time where you could be proud of your religion and not have some sort of shame come in from like Western media or all of this. And so to educate the young people, because of course it's very worrying when young people get radicalized, go off and join ISIS and things like that, and think, wow, there really is a need for education for so, because of course we actually see Muslims around the world who are committing crimes in the name of jihad have no understanding of what true jihad is. Which is why we really need to inform ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right. The way it's been kind of co-opted, and obviously there's so many various I think factors at play when we look at radicalization and especially the way it's framed in this country, and we know, for example, especially in a Luton context, prevent duty, and how this feeds into this narrative of actually securitization of young Muslims. So I completely understand what you're saying as well in terms of the risk. So do you think then our own Muslim community specifically are maybe doing enough to kind of, I don't know whether it's right to say reclaim that term, but better educate others, I guess, about it?
Well, I mean, I think that would be a wonderful thing, because jihad is such a noble concept, which I think should be at the core of our faith, even, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the most excellent example of implementing these four different main types of jihad. So you have the jihad of education and jihad of the tongue. So you have that sort of patiently explaining the religion, guiding others, writing, and education. You have jihad of society, which is Jihad of the Hand, which is like improving society. So, all sorts of charity works, putting infrastructure in, just making life good for everybody and providing food and all sorts of stuff. And then you have Jihad of the Heart, which is so important as well. This is our spiritual journey to Allah and, perfection of the character. And then it's only in very particular circumstances where Jihad of the Sword would come into play. And there's very, very specific rules and boundaries around that. And in fact, there is you can't even declare jihad in this day and age because there's no Khalif of the Muslims. So in a way, there is actually no Jihad of the Sword. Sure. And that's what Sheikh Hisham writes in his fatwa, even though, there is fighting going on.
Sure.
There's no actual true jihad. So I think, because the meaning of the word is to strive for excellence. And I think any young person who has that in their heart, of course, Islam is striving for excellence. It is the most excellent religion. It's the most excellent of all things in all parts of life. And that's why jihad is a term that can be loved and embraced and understood.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true because it's so important, I guess, to always focus on that definition, even though, of course, it's very fluid, but this idea of striving for excellence. And there's many ways to do that. And we know, obviously, from the example of the Prophet ﷺ, it's, through your morals, it's through your character, it's, there's so many, but then, coming back to what we were saying earlier, it's like the fourth category, jihad as sword, which is constantly being used and platformed. But actually, like you said, it's actually part of a wider struggle, because I think sometimes people use that term as well. So, I mean, the book that you've written is really beautiful. Obviously, it's really accessible, I think, because like I said, there's a particular age group that it's aimed for, looking at younger teenagers or teenagers. But even as an adult, the fact that it has beautiful illustrations, it's got references, it's the formatting, everything's really excellent. I think it just makes it so much easier to kind of delve really deep into Islam, but in a way which it's just very understandable. I don't know if that makes sense, because I know there's books where they might be too wordy, or you get a sense of being a bit complicated almost. So it was really nice and refreshing to read your book. But could we have maybe a bit of, just for the listeners, the process of you writing the book? What was that like? I mean, it'd be nice to know if you have previous experience of writing, or where that creative side of you came from, but then and then how you came to publish it. It'd be sometimes nice to know what that process is like.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, this is a very fun process from my point of view. I actually love making things, making books. Yeah. And well, the first book I wrote was Science in the Quran, which is which again has lots of illustrations, very very easy to, very accessible. It's sort of aimed slightly younger, I would say. It has some Montessori activities in it, and so that's very interesting, because you get all the latest scientific things and these beautiful ayats from Quran and how they are talking about this futuristic science. So that was really exciting to do. So that was the first one, and so this one has been about 4 years of research. Although like I work on it part time, so it's not a full-time job. You sort of fit it in around your other work. Yeah. But yes, I mean, first there's a lot of reading and research. So you have to make sure everything is 100% accurate, correct. And just reading everything I could around it, and listening as well to really good podcasts such as Islamic History channel. I don't know if you've heard of that one. And there's a very good one about the society in the time of the Prophet ﷺ by Sheikh Ahmed Saad. And I'm always listening to the soffets of the Sheikh Hisham Kabani. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of research, and then and then I have sort of ideas about, okay, I want to make a big thing about what the battles actually happened. What was it like in those battles? So I thought, I'll write a little mini story within the book about this young lad who was the first time he was in a battle, and he was joining the Prophet ﷺ, and what it would have been like for him to be in those days of the Prophet ﷺ and going out there in battle, and then fighting the great battle of Badr, and how amazing that was, and all the angels came, and it was, subhanAllah, just amazing. And then the battle of Uhud didn't go quite as well. I think the Muslims got a little bit overconfident, and it sort of really talks about the feelings, the emotions of what that kind of was like. And also I wanted to really, I made a big thing of the rules of battle in Islam, just nice and clear. There's absolutely none of this death by fire or committing suicide, right? Like, no, absolutely. That is for you're not allowed that at all. And so then, and I sort of have in my mind the sort of what images would be there, how to illustrate it, how to make it interesting and engaging. And then it's a process. You get your big sort of program up where you have all the pages, and you do the whole look, and then this takes a long time to get the formatting perfect. The editing takes so long as well. Even when we thought we'd finished, we handed it over to another editor, and she found 500 corrections. So you think you've got them all, but there's still more there. And then Hannah Horak, Yafi, she did these wonderful illustrations, as well. So it's really fun to work with her. She's been someone who I work very closely with as well, also in the Halima Musima. And and then sort of sending it off. And I really enjoy putting it all together in the final PDF. You send it off to the publishers, and subhanAllah, when you get your final book in front of you, it's almost like a miracle sometimes. Think, wow, how did that happen? SubhanAllah, so I feel just so blessed to be able to do it. And that only gives me the patience and the endurance to finish it as well. I'm someone who loves starting things. I find it harder to finish things, so I really have to force myself. Alhamdulillah, I really enjoy that whole process.
That's amazing. And you spoke like a true creative there, where we, I think sometimes it's very easy to get excited about things, but, like you said, actually getting to the end, and it's the labour of love, and I guess seeing it all come to fruition is, really, really lovely. And it's great to hear actually the process, because sometimes I think we just see, as readers, the finished product, right? We don't actually see all the work behind it. And I guess I'm just really interested slightly, on a side note, I guess, from the book itself, but, I think it was mentioned, obviously, you're doing through your work, looking at well-being and using creativity and things like, those kind of avenues, I guess. From an Islamic perspective, how important do you think that is? Because, there is this tendency, I guess, for us as Muslims, or particularly, certain communities where you want to go academically, like, I don't know, typical, like, STEM subjects, let's say. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But why do you think actually, or how do you think these avenues are just as important? So whether you go into something a bit more creative, or becoming a writer, or all those things.
Well, I think so much. Like when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, follow your natural inclinations, and he would like to assign jobs to people who liked and was good at those jobs. So he would say, what is your character like? If you enjoy that sort of thing, then and then I do this specific role. There was all these different roles in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. A lot more. That was something really interesting I learned, actually, about how all the different roles of people. And so I think, if you're feeling creative, just follow your heart. That's what they say, isn't it? And and sort of find little mini courses of how to do things, and just write that poetry or whatever, and sort of expressions of art. I think is so. It's really been a part of Islam as well. It's so much beauty in architecture and design, and painting and poetry, so much, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we literally, our history, our heritage is so rich, and actually it's very wide. I think there's a perception that when you say the arts, that it's very specific of, painting or music, but actually, I guess it's how you perceive the world. I mean, we know that, if Allah's created the world and there's beauty in it, there's signs, there's signs around us. And I guess it's how you interact with that. But I love what you said, and actually, I don't know if I realised that, in terms of Prophet, assigning roles, and I guess, going with your natural inclination is a really lovely way of really thinking about, the self, which is really, really lovely. So I guess I'm also thinking then the link, what is the direct link there with well-being? And obviously we know, especially we've all gone through the pandemic, and obviously it's still, there's no such thing now as normal or going back to normal. So what impact can that have on well-being? And I'm thinking specifically for parents and carers out there who might be listening, for their children, and how maybe we can support that in a way.
Well, I mean, as an art therapist, using the creative arts is such a wonderful way to relax, to de-stress, to just have some time of fun and enjoyment. And when things don't have to have an end result, it's not result. You can just dive into your heart and find out whatever's there, express it, and children as well, when they're, given lots of art materials, they're just given that freedom to make anything they want. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be amazing. It could just be whatever they want to do. Just that sense of relaxation, there's no pressure, because there's so much, doing all at school and all that sort of stuff. It's just so nice for kids to kick back and just, do whatever they would like, and get outside and, I don't know, making up a drama, doing whatever art or play that they enjoy. And also for adults, if you're feeling stressed, coloring in and just kind of, as an art therapist as well, if you just have a piece of paper in front of you and some bright colors, and you close your eyes, do a meditation, and just sort of allow a picture to come. This could be anything, just shapes, colors, textures, and then you might look at it and think, oh gosh, this is meaningful. This is really how my heart is feeling, and what is going on here? There seems to be a really dark patch there or something. So you sort of can then tune into that, think, oh God, I'm actually feeling very sad about something. And then you can, you can sort of explore that a bit and draw it out. And it's such a good way, because a lot of our trauma, our sadness is actually stored in the right hemisphere of our brain. And so if we then do art and stuff, which is also in the right side of our brain, we're much more likely to access proper healing through it, rather than just sort of thinking about our problems, which doesn't tend to be very effective. We tend to go in circles. And, sometimes it's just much better to get it out there on paper. And
Gosh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And I, for example, I tend to, I write sometimes, I do a bit of poetry, but it's funny. So I was in a supermarket the other day, and they were just selling some watercolor pencil. I don't even know what they were, and I looked at them and thought, oh God, they're super. And I actually bought it. I haven't even used them. So, but it was a step. It was a step of me saying, actually, I'd like to try it. And actually, now that you've said that, I think that's a really good starting point, because it's like you said, it's not that kind of results driven. You could literally sit there and just do doodles or just do a bit of colouring. And I think you're right. And I think the freedom and liberty that comes with that. And again, in terms of children and young people, they are so, everything's compartmentalised for them, isn't it? Because of their schooling, and then there might be madrasa, and, but this idea of, just having their me time and being able to be creative. I think that's fantastic advice and really important. So, thank you for sharing that. So obviously we are talking today about your book, The True Story of Jihad in Islamic History. So is there a particular reason, I think we've got a couple of minutes before we go to the break, about a minute or so. So just really quickly, this is part one. So this is the life of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So why was that specifically the starting point?
Well, I think everything starts with the Prophet Muhammad. Even our whole universe started with him. Even the whole of creation, they said that the light of the Prophet was the first thing that Allah created. SubhanAllah. And I don't know, his light, it just permeates everything. So I think, of course, he is the starting point. And I think, of course, we're going to find out about our religion through the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So it absolutely has to start there. And his examples were just so amazing. SubhanAllah, the way he lived his life just does not cease to amaze me. His endless generosity, ﷺ, he's just so compassionate and kind. And even the way he treated any prisoners of war, he would send them back even when a ransom was demanded. If the family didn't have any money, he would send them back anyway. He just didn't have that sort of a nasty bone in his body. He was absolutely the most example of perfection. Beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely agree. And it's a beautiful way to, I think, kind of delve into it. We are headed to our break, so you can grab yourself some tea or biscuits, and we will see you shortly. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Book Club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood, and today we have a lovely guest with us, Yasmine Watson, and we are talking about her beautiful book, The True Story of Jihad in Islamic History. And in the first half of the show, we were talking a little bit about what the meaning of jihad is, this concept of striving for excellence, the fact that there actually are 4 different types of jihad. And we were also kind of touched upon the negative portrayal, I think, of Islam, and specifically the term jihad as well, and how we can, I guess, unpick that, reclaim it, and better educate others about it too. So I am joined by Yasmine, and I'm just going to welcome Yasmine back. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So I thought what would be really good was we touched upon the fact in the first half of the show that obviously you are a counsellor, you are an art therapist, and through all of that work you formed an organisation called Halima Muslimah Wellbeing and Retreats. So could we have a little bit more information about what that is, what you offer? So if there's any listeners who are interested in taking that time out and for that self-development and
well, because the intention around that was to have a service that would really help Muslim women and children, because I think a lot of them suffer quite a lot in various different ways. And so we started doing retreats quite a while ago. So we go on and organize very low cost and easy to access. So I always felt a retreat shouldn't be this huge luxury thing only for the very wealthy. It should be really for people who really need a time out and break from their life, and so we were organizing that, mostly going down to Spain, which is very nice. And then also, after training to be an art therapist, we've put a lot more things in now. So we have courses online, we have parenting courses, we have courses for sisters to come and do some art therapy, and they're all quite cheap, they're all inexpensive. We just really want everyone to access them as much as possible, and also we offer therapy as well, which is going to be in Feltham, as well as around where I live in Henley-on-Thames. So inshallah. So we're really, and also do things for children and workshops, activities, classes, online to learn about emotional well-being and stuff like that. So it's been really exciting.
That's brilliant. I mean, there's a lot on offer, which is great. And I guess I have a question around obviously we're talking about well-being, and you mentioned therapy, and we've said that obviously you're a counsellor. Now, I know from conversations there sometimes seems to be a bit of stigma maybe attached to the idea of needing counselling or needing therapy, and how would you kind of explain actually why that's important, and it's okay to want, and I mean, I'm going to say help, but it's maybe even more than help. It's kind of support, isn't it? I guess.
Well, I mean, this life can have so many trials, so many hardships, so many trials. People go through so much, and sometimes it gets really overwhelming. And it's absolutely, this is how, because Allah has put us here on the trials of earth, and sometimes we really need that support for a little while. And I mean, it's like almost going to a doctor. We go and have a checkup, make sure our physical body is all right, and we might want to go and and if we're finding we're a bit low or a bit overwhelmed with stuff like that, then again we could go for a mental health checkup. And the journey of going through therapy is such an enjoyable one. It's like you become closer to how Allah wants you to be. Allah doesn't want us to be depressed or sad or too angry and can't deal with things. He wants us to reach our full potential. That's and be close to his compassion and mercy. And so we have that compassion and mercy on ourselves. And sometimes it's very hard to be compassionate and merciful on ourselves. We can be very self-judgmental and all sorts of things. So I think it's absolutely almost an essential part of this, and we're living in the last days. It's even more difficult now. And we should take those resources when they're out there. And I know in my own recovery and healing journey as well, when I thought some counselling, it helped me hugely. And it was the absolutely essential part of my recovery, and I felt that Allah put them in there to help. So Allah provides the means. It's not like you're supposed to do everything on your own, and it's like sometimes he puts very special people there to help you through difficult times.
Absolutely. No, and it's a really lovely way of I think thinking about things. So despite maybe that taboo that is out there, I think you're right, because it's that spiritual nourishment. It definitely would come under that. Just like if there is an ailment, we go to the doctor. It's not any different. And I think you've kind of encapsulated that, really, really well. So hopefully, it's fantastic. Like you said, you've gone through some of the things that you offer in terms of the wellbeing retreats and the therapy and the counselling. And, I think the more maybe we are able to talk about it and, in a positive light, hopefully more people can access that. So, thank you so much for sharing that. So I guess if we come back to obviously your wonderful book and talk a little bit about, so you spoke about the inspiration behind it, obviously the fact that, it's Sheikh Hisham of Gabani who you've taken, the kind of teachings from as well. Now there's a section in the book, for example, you talk about women's rights, you talk about the concept of slavery in Islam as well. And it kind of just made me think, as I was reading it, we know, there's the recent kind of movement in terms of the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter and all these things are kind of fighting misogyny, fighting racism. And that can, I think, as parents and carers, that can be quite a lot for us. And I'm thinking your book is aimed at, teenagers and young people. What is the best way to educate our children in kind of that current social political climate, if that makes sense?
Well, I think it's going back to our deen all the time. The Prophet ﷺ, he was the first person to Islam was the first religion to give women their rights and slave rights when they had no rights at all. And just to be there and like look to religion and feel self-confident within yourself. So when injustice does occur, then we can implement jihad of the tongue, for instance, and like petition the MP, spread awareness about an issue, start a campaign. These are all things that that we can and we should. We do live in a society, even though there is racism and stuff like that and misogyny going along, we still in a society where we can speak up and we're not going to be carted off to prison or something. So, alhamdulillah, then we have those opportunities. So yeah, this is where jihad of the tongue would really come in, I think, and and have that self-confidence of yes, don't kind of, even there's always going to be people who are negative around us. How do we respond to them is the question, I think.
Yeah, that's right, and you're right. It's about having the confidence, and also we are commanded to stand up for justice, and I think as long as we we're doing that, then inshallah, the support will come, and and I guess that's community spirit as well, isn't it? It's about having others maybe like-minded, and that it's values driven in a way, isn't it? And I guess that's what's really nice about the book as well, because you've kind of incorporated the concept of jihad, by talking about the Prophet ﷺ as an example, and you kind of transporting the reader to those different times. The fact that it is like a basira, because you do talk about the different battles and different examples of what the Prophet ﷺ did and how he, I guess, conducted himself. So that that is really, really helpful as well. I mean, it kind of in the same vein of the conversation that we're having, and we touched upon obviously well-being as well. I guess I know there's one challenge at the moment where I love reading. I absolutely love reading. I try to instill that in my children as well. But nowadays, obviously, we have the distraction of social media and gaming, and always wanting to be online and kind of plugged in. Is there anything around that you can maybe, I guess, advise on, or but specifically to reading? How do we bring our children back to reading, the love of reading, and to regulate, I guess, the online world as well?
Well, I think it is a real challenge now. Is the parents are really, it's a huge challenge. Kids these days are raised on iPads and stuff like that, and I just think to put serious boundaries around it, like absolutely not allowing children under the age of 8 or 9, 10 even to have an iPad, just to be kind of strict around it, because in the teenage years it's only going to get worse, and they're going to be glued to these things, and so having boundaries, it's not easy to put in boundaries at all, so that's a whole thing in itself. And I think encouraging children's self-expression and getting interesting books in front of them, like having only very specific times when they can watch the television, for instance, and the rest of the time they have to find something else to do. And if they have a good range of interesting books to read, and going to libraries, going to museums, going to places of interest, and stimulating their sense of wonder of the world, and again in a non-pressurized way. Not here, right, we're going to learn X, Y, Z, It's kind of just more in a sort of fun discovery way. And I think children really love that, and doing sports and stuff like that's very healthy for them as well, because it seems like teenagers who have a good sporting interest tend to stay away from, they're not so addicted to the gaming and everything like that. So things like, and that sort of sense of, and also I think developing a sense of well-being and self-confidence within the children is so important, so that, say, if they're on social media, they don't get overwhelmed with all this stuff. You can start feeling really bad about yourself and comparing yourself. You want them to be self-confident themselves enough that they're not going to be affected by all this negative stuff, and also be informed enough to make the right choices. Exactly. Because also there's a lot of danger out there. I mean, parents need to be really aware of putting the safeguards in when it comes to your internet provider. You can put in all the parental controls, and I think that is absolutely essential, and to be aware of children, not really letting them have devices, in their bedrooms, especially if you're slightly worried that they might access inappropriate content, stuff like that. So it's being really vigilant about it. I think we can't rest on this, because Shaitan regimes, that's one of his favorite ways of getting at our kids. So may Allah protect us all, and protect our children. I mean,
I mean, absolutely. And yeah, no, definitely. I think what you've said about boundaries is important. I mean, to be honest, I asked about children. I'm thinking about myself and having to place boundaries of myself because, you know, we're also transitioning into a generation of not having it and suddenly having this access and how, yeah, we are good role models, I guess, for our children. But no, that's really good advice. And actually, you know, you spoke about the parenting. I mean, I had the pleasure of doing the parenting course that you were offering and all of these things were kind of included in that, you know, which is really, really helpful. And it does, I think what it helps, especially connecting to other parents, is we are going through similar struggles. And, you know, it's the idea of it takes a village. And I think just connecting with each other is a really, it's just really important and powerful in itself. So, no, that's really, you know, fantastic. And I guess, you know, it's leading on from that then, you know, if we are then able to cultivate, you know, that kind of positive environment in the home. You mentioned now in the book as well about the kafur, if I pronounced that correctly, because I wasn't sure, I hadn't come across the term actually myself. So, which basically means contemplation. So, why is that, you know, important, that taking that time, I guess, to pause, especially in an age like we've just said that there are like many distractions?
Yes, well, I mean, dunya has about 1,000,001 distractions, definitely. and so I suppose we just, you know, the takafur, the you know, the contemplation is that time where we spend just in quiet remembrance with Allah, and to have time in the day where we dedicate, where we switch everything off, where we're just quiet. And Imam Ghazali, Allah bless him, he recommended having a schedule for the day, to plan out your day, and definitely include times like that. So you have these times where we can be completely quiet and with Allah, because I mean this is all part of jihad of the heart. So it's kind of taking stock of ourselves. You know, we need to audit ourselves. We need to audit our actions so that we can, you know, we can find and ask Allah for guidance to be the best that we can be, ask forgiveness and stuff, and, you know, and ask His guidance. So I think it's that, you know, because they say, you know, because for Allah, you know, you remember the hadith where, you know, where, you know, were this world worth a wing of mosquito in the sight of Allah, He would not have given the disbeliever a drink of water thereof. Which it's like, you know, the dunya is not worth more than a wing of a mosquito to Allah. So it's like how much we're focusing all our time on the dunya, and then it's like come back to the heart, come back to our spiritual journey to Allah. And that is the priority, that is the ultimate, that is our reason, I believe, of being here on earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the dunya, so if we are worrying about our connection with Allah, then the dunya will worry about itself. You know, we don't need to worry about it too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's very easy to forget that sometimes, isn't it? Because, like you said, the dunya is a distraction and it's there. Yeah, and our focus goes so much on that. And the jihad of the heart, I guess, is so important, you know, for that very reason. And, you know, when you mention taking time out for that contemplation, I mean, would you say, so that's kind of in addition, obviously, because we have our, you know, 5 daily prayers, inshallah, that, you know, we read. But I guess this is kind of going a little bit beyond that, where you're just taking, you know, time. It could be dhikr, or I guess it wouldn't even... And what does that look like, I guess, for you, you know, or how would you explain it?
Well, I mean, part of our practices is that, you know, we have a dhikr to do every day, which might take an hour or half an hour or something. And, different repetitions of Allah's names. And also we'll have the connection that we do within our heart. And so that can just be very quiet, really calming, the whole system down, so we can listen, you know, we can hear Allah's inspirations from our Shaykh or from the Prophet ﷺ. So we want to be open and present for that. Otherwise we can miss it. So unless we like really quiet ourselves down, we're not going to be able to hear. So inshallah. So, and then if you do that before a prayer, then how much better the prayer is.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very good advice, because I know that there's it was very easy to even get distracted within the prayer. And you know what you said about, you know, being present, and of course in the prayer, but I guess in all moments in our life, the more present we are, we're in touch with ourselves, which obviously means then we have that connection, or greater connection to Allah, which is in itself can be kind of transforming, isn't it? You kind of transcend the base things, which is what the dunya is, you know, which you kind of touched upon. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually it's quite simple to, you know, you're just saying to pause and just take a few minutes even before prayer, but we're just rushing. I mean, I say I'm talking about myself, you know, so it's, but you know, it's, no, definitely that's really lovely, I think, to kind of, to focus on and work on as well. So, you know, in terms of then, at the moment, you know, for example, I can't remember who it is that said this, but this idea that we live in a world of iPads and iPhones, and the focus on the focus of the I, you know, like the me kind of culture. Now, so if we're in a society that's kind of promoting that individualism, almost like to look out for your own self and those type of things, you know, you talk about, there's in the book, obviously, then there's the jihad of the self, really. How do we then push back, you know, against what we're being told by society?
Yeah, well, I mean, in a sense, actually, you know, jihad of the heart starts with the self. So it's kind of like, because we need to take stock of ourselves, our actions, and like, say if we have been acting in a selfish way, which has been imposed on us by society and encouraged, then we can audit ourselves, and so when we ask for Allah's guidance and to not leave it until the next life, and then because if we find peace within ourselves, then peace will be in our homes, and then peace will be in all our society. And I think the whole nature of the spiritual journey is to go from individualism to universal. So we're connected to everyone. You know, we are no longer just an individual ego I. This is the normal ego state, isn't it? Like it's I. And then if we are on a spiritual journey, we can begin to expand out and feel connected to everybody. So it's then we, you know, it's part of the whole. So in a way, and then we become more aware of this whole imposition of our society to be individualistic, and then and I think our thinking naturally then changes. You know, you don't want to do something just for yourself anymore, just egotistical. You know, in terms of, I know you want to give out more money, or you become more generous, or you do more for society, or you do something for everybody. So I think it's a natural progression.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can happen, and I think that's the whole spiritual thing, really. It's that realizing we are really selfish, and being like, okay,
no, exactly. You know. I know, which is part. I think sometimes maybe that is part of the challenge, because we have to acknowledge that, you know, and in order to do the work. So, no, definitely, I think there's something there, and especially again, you know, the age where, you know, people talk about spirituality as this kind of really, I don't know what term to use, but because there's an absence of the divine in it sometimes, so it becomes, I mean, in my opinion, it feels a bit superficial. Of course, it will work for some people, and that's absolutely fine, but I think that's the beauty of Islam, the fact that actually we do have that connection to the divine, and everything feels like it has a purpose. So, you know, which I think it does give you an amazing feeling, actually, once you're, you know, I guess, developing an understanding of that. Now, obviously, we've talked about some of your, obviously, inspiration behind your writing, and obviously the book, The True Story of Jihad in Islamic History. And we mentioned that this book at the moment is part 1, which is focusing on the life of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So just to kind of wrap up, you know, the show, we've got, I think, a couple of minutes, where I'm assuming there's obviously other parts, because this is part 1, so it'd be really nice to know about those, and also where people can actually purchase the book as well, where's kind of the best outlet, you know, so that'd be really nice.
Yeah, well, you know, like originally it was going to be one book. It was going to be one book, and covering the whole of Islamic history, like an overview. And it turned too massive, basically. So, and also it was getting hard to finish the last section. So I thought, so we all thought, yeah, inshallah, we'll just do it in parts. So we'll start with the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then the next book will be about the Rashidun Khalifs, Sayyidina Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, Sayyidina Umar, Uthman, and Ali, may Allah bless them all, and sort of how they were able to, continue what the Prophet ﷺ brought. There were so many rebels going on. There was so much that they had to deal with, and their kind of story of how, subhanAllah, they did all that, and they're amazing characters, and their jihad of the hand is so exceptional, especially in the time of Sayyidina Umar, may Allah bless him. Yes. His sense of justice was so huge, and subhanAllah. So that goes through there, and then we sort of have more of an overview. So you have the Abbasids, the Umayyads, the Ottoman empires, and then it does touch on the rise of extremism in modern times, as well. So to kind of have this overview and sort of look at those different times in history and the things that they brought, and the and the ups and the downs as well, not like putting a gloss over it. There was a lot of downs, I think, as well. So it's kind of but like a sort of a realistic overview, so someone can be informed and talk about the history of it, because it's really only in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the rightly guided caliphs that you would say, oh, this is the proper way. And after that, it kind of went off on a tangent. So that is inshallah, we hope to release the second one in about 6 months' time, inshallah, and then the third one, inshallah, about a year. And so you could buy it anywhere you like to buy books. It could be on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or the Book Depository or anywhere really. Right. You can have a look at the website halimapublishing.co.uk.
Brilliant.
As well.
Yeah. That's amazing. So there's lots to look forward to, which is really, really excellent. And I look forward to. Well, I'll have to have you back on, inshallah, when the next one as well. And but thank you so much, Yasmine, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope listeners that you've had a bit of an insight really into the concept of jihad and obviously the book itself and Islamic history. But I will be back hopefully, inshallah, in a couple of weeks with a new book and a new author. Until the meantime, please do keep us in your du'as, and I will see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at InspireFM Luton.